Hey, I'm gonna let you in on a secret. This is my secret weapon on how to keep an audience engaged, not only through the introduction, but for the entirety of a speech that I'm giving from a platform. And the way that I do that is through hacking our mental processing. And what do I mean by that? Human beings, we're constantly processing information. Even if you are listening to somebody speak and you tune out, your brain is processing something else. They're processing the noise of the person talking, you're processing anxieties, you're processing different things that you're thinking about, you're processing the feel of your clothes on you or the feel of you sitting down. Your brain is constantly processing information. So what we want to do is we want to insert ourselves into a person's mental processing. And let me give you an example of that. For a moment, I don't want you to think about a white polar bear that's riding an alligator while they're on their way to a tea party. That sounds pretty ridiculous, doesn't it? But most likely, within your mind, you saw the picture that I just painted for you. You saw a white polar bear riding an alligator, and you perhaps saw some kind of tea set nearby. I inserted these thoughts into your mind through my speech. Now, we can do the same thing when we're up on stage, when we're communicating with people. And there's a few ways that we can do that. The first way, and one of the most effective ways, is through the use of questions. We can use questions to insert ideas, thoughts, and get the audience thinking without them even realizing it. So let me ask you a question. Do you smell right now? When was the last time you took a bath? So chances are you heard those questions and you may have thought to yourself, do I smell? When was the last time I took a bath? Let me ask you another question. What's the most bizarre food you've ever had in your life? At least for me, it was fermented shark in Iceland. But now, by me asking you that question, automatically your mind thought, what is the most bizarre thing I've ever had? Perhaps you already conjured up an idea of what is that really bizarre dish. I inserted that into your mind, and your mind processed it and created a response. Let me use this one as a final example. Can you imagine a world dominated by cats? Most likely in your brain, you had a mental picture of a world dominated by cats, whatever that might look like for you. When we ask questions, we force the audience to stop, process that question, and automatically come up with an answer. We can use that when we give our speeches. Now, we can use that when we are in our introduction, or what I call signposting as well. So for instance, when we are doing our introduction, we might even tell the audience, who am I? They might think, well, you're Giovanni, or you are so-and-so. You engage them automatically. You can ask them, what are we going to talk about today? They're going to ask themselves, what are we going to talk about today? We can ask them, what's coming up next? What is going to be the topics of conversation that we are going to have during this speech? What will we discuss over the next 10 to 15 minutes? When we ask those questions, the audience, even if they don't have an answer, they're going to try to process an answer, and it gives them an opportunity of being more willing to accept an answer from you. So if I say, what are we going to discuss over the next 10 minutes? This is what we're going to discuss. The audience is now ready for the information that we are going to give them. One thing that I love to do is called signposting. Let's say that I'm finishing my introduction. I want to jump into one of the first points of my speech. I might say, what are we going to discuss next? This is the next point. Or maybe we're at the end of a main point, we're going to jump into something else. We could say, what did we just discuss? They're automatically going to start thinking about it and be engaged with what you're saying. Signposting is really important because we want to keep our audience's mind consistently processing what we're saying. And this can be used through transitionary statements. This is what we discussed. This is what we're going to discuss. What did we just go over? What did we just talk about? How does this apply to you? How does this apply to all of us? How can we make practical value of what we are discussing? When we ask these questions of the audience, it keeps them processing the information. So use these types of questions liberally because it will help you to stay within the processing of a person's mind rather than them tuning out and being on their phones. Now we can use another tip, which is use pauses to process. Now let me use an example. We want to, let's say, emphasize a key point. And let me use this example. Let's say that you are giving a presentation. You say, ladies and gentlemen, in the last year, our company's profits increased 300%. For next year, how much better can we be? I made the statement, we increased profits 300%. I allowed time for the audience to process that information. Wow, that's a lot. That's great. What's next? Because if I speed through that, it reduces the importance of what I just said. If I just say, ladies and gentlemen, our organization had profits increased by 300%, so let's see what's going to happen next. It doesn't have the same emphasis. We can also use pauses to allow a person time to catch up with what's going on. Let's say we just finished a main point. We want to jump into a new point. We might want to pause. So for instance, here's an example. It says, so that was our team's strategy for the last project and the results speak for themselves. So now let's talk about what we're going to do next year. We give the audience an opportunity to pause, to stop, think about everything that was just said, and make them ready for what is going to come up next. And of course, we can also use rhetorical questions. Anytime we use a question and pause, it's really powerful. Because we can ask something like, what else can you do to make your career more beneficial? I can help you to determine that. Even though it was just a couple seconds, you thought about the answer to that. You allow time for the audience to come up with an answer. This is a beautiful tool. It's a powerful tool that will really help you to keep your audience engaged, not only through an introduction, but through the whole entire speech and into the conclusion. Give it a go. Let me know how it goes.